So I've got 2 short stories written in North Bay. There's another author. They did the Cardinal TV series based off of his books, but he didn't call it North Bay. He called it Algonquin Bay. And I know Stephen King does a lot in Maine and all that. The thing is, I wanted a 1-to-1. Like, so I have my main one, Fog of Ypres. I can never say it. Can't even say my own book. Fog of Ypres. It's a horror story. It's set in like a 1-to-1 North Bay, and it follows the character. His name's Gold. He's got to navigate this unnatural fog and encounter horrific apparitions and things like that throughout the city. Think very, in a very great way. It's a lot of Silent Hill. It's a lot of The Mist. A little bit of Alan Wake, probably. Very video gamey. A lot of fun to write. It's right here. This is Twigs. It starts right here. We don't call it Twigs though. Can I get 2 medium doubles?
For sure.
And that's all, thanks. Oh, it's pouring. So it starts here, and he's got to make his way through this ghostly version of North Bay. It was a lot of fun. I used a lot of Google Maps on that one to get his location like perfect. Yeah, thanks. There's a point to this. Anyway, it just starts here, and he's got to go through North Bay, and he's got to go to these Tim Hortons, and he meets these apparitions of the old man. That one will get published, I swear to you. You're going to watch this video. It's 2026, April 18th. I think within the next few years. I've got the first part, which is the first novella, which I could, submit right now, but I think for a first-time author or a first-time writer, I don't, there's no way they'd take a 40,000 word novella. Especially if they knew, like if a publishing company, if I did speak to an agent, they'd be like, no man, like you got to get part 2, part 3. So anyway, but I just figured I was just grabbing pizza, and he follows this path. I'm doing it in reverse right now. That's really cool. And then I got another one. It's a bit of a thriller. That one's going to be called 5 Ton, and that's going to be set in North Bay as well. And that's going to be a little bit like, if you remember. Thank you. Thanks so much. Have a good one. If you remember Russell Crowe in Unhinged, I think it was that. That movie started off so good. I loved Russell Crowe in that. It's a little bit like that, but not quite as like, he's not necessarily Teddy Dalton's not a bad guy. So we'll do that one day. That one's just gonna be a short story. Anyway, we just spoke about plot holes. Oh, God. And I did have something else I wanted to talk about. Well, power levels is always on my mind. We'll do that today. Last one will probably be called, like, don't write yourself into a corner. And then this one will be about power levels. I've actually wanted to talk about this for a while. Because so my cousins, love those guys. They're like brothers to me. My cousins are massive anime fans, and I mean, like, especially my cousin Dylan, like, just an encyclopedic knowledge of anime. Dylan, if you watch these, man, you need to get out there and get a YouTube going, and where you just discuss it, because I think that your takes on it, I could listen to that guy talk about anime all day. He talks about it like it's like this fucking refined cinema. It's incredible. Anyway, awesome guy. But we always joke, because they're huge fucking Dragon Ball fans. I guess Dragon Ball Z, just all of it. Just anything with the boys in it and Goku. Who doesn't love Dragon Ball Z and stuff, right? We grew up on that. The Frieza and Cell sagas and Majin Buu, and they showed me whatever, I think it was Dragon Ball Super. Whatever the recent one was, not recent, it was years ago, where Goku fought Hit, and he goes like Ultra Instinct. Anyway, this is great, because this is what I wanted to talk about. Very early on in Dragon Ball Z, you have Piccolo, and I guess he was a bad guy in Dragon Ball, and we start Dragon Ball Z off, and you have Gohan, this kid Gohan, he's very young, he's like 4 or 5, and he's rampaging, and I believe he's turned into the Super Saiyan, the giant, monkey thing. Don't kill me, guys, I'm sorry, I don't know my lore. But anyway, he's rampaging, and he's transformed into it from the moon, so this is great. If this was like a Sanderson video, if I was at that level, maybe one day, I could listen to Brandon Sanderson talk all day as well. That's kind of like probably some of the inspiration for this. So that's good. It's like, I guess it would almost be like a hard magic system that's defined. It's whenever the moon's up, he turns into this creature. He has an undefined power level. We can judge based on how Piccolo is dealing with it. This is a powerful creature. So anyway, long story short, Piccolo blows the moon out. That is what he is resolved to do. He goes, I'm going to blow the moon out. I think, was it Toriyama? I don't think Toriyama really cared about what I'm going to talk about. So this probably doesn't exist, or there might actually be an explanation. If there is, guys, I don't get enough comments on these. I never asked for them. I'd love to hear your input on it. But anyway, Piccolo looks up to the moon. Boom! One shots the moon. And I mean, complete disintegration. There's no fallout. There's nothing. We're not even going to talk about the gravity and destabilizing the Earth. It's irrelevant. Fuck all of that. Piccolo shoots the moon. Okay? Instantaneously. I don't know how far the moon is, but you can actually, if I was a smart man, you could probably use math to do this. How many nukes would it take to completely disintegrate the moon? Piccolo does that. So now we actually have a baseline for Piccolo's power level. Follow me. So now we know Piccolo has the equivalent of X amount of nuclear bombs at a moment's notice. Boom! Moon's gone. So then Raditz comes to Earth a little later, and there's a scene, I believe, I might be a little wrong, but I know Piccolo hits him with something. Boom! And it's quick. So we would assume, and I know it's not correct, but follow me. We would then assume that Piccolo is able to summon X amount of nuclear bomb level attack, and Raditz just laughs at it and shrugs it off. It's fucking nothing for this guy. Raditz is a Saiyan. He gets a lot of hate, but Raditz on his own is a world-ending threat. That's how powerful he is. And we've already seen Piccolo wipe out a moon, and Raditz takes that shit like it's nothing. I hope I have this in chronological order. Later on, of course, you get the scene where Piccolo and Goku, they've got a sack of boom, and he beams him, and it takes Piccolo a long time to charge this up. My entire point with this is, we already know that, based on what we've seen, Raditz, the weakest of all of them, who's a fucking joke, can take a full nuclear blast to the chest. That's our baseline power, right? So we get to a point where, and I'm okay with it, when Goku and Frieza even are throwing hands, like these are like nuclear bomb level, like, what's the word for it? For like force and energy. Anyway, dude's throwing freaking 1-inch punches that are like 50 times nuclear bombs. It's nuts. Another one, I gotta get this off my chest, is Iron Man, especially Iron Man 1. In Iron Man 1, we see Tony in the Iron Man Mark 1, or Mark 2. He's the Mark 2, and he goes to the Middle East there, and I forget, I think it's like a Russian T-72. I mean, an older Russian tank hits him. So, and we know what that is. It's like a 120 millimeter, whatever, armor-piercing shell. Anyway, so you can calculate that. So we know that the Mark II can take this shell, right? We know that it can take that much direct impact and disperse that energy, because it doesn't penetrate, it doesn't really scuff them. Iron Man then falls out of the sky, hundreds of feet, crashes into the earth, and he gets up relatively unscathed. So we know that the Iron Man Mark II can take an X amount of force and damage and blunt force trauma, which is awesome. It's the fucking Iron Man. Later on, when the Ironmonger is fighting Tony, and he's firing the minigun at him, I know Tony doesn't have the helmet, but it's like those rounds would do nothing to his armor based on what we've seen with the tank shells, right? Like, at best, what does the Ironmonger have? So like a 20 millimeter, it's a minigun, it's a rotary. Anyway, and then the Ironmonger crushes his helmet, and he just beat the fuck out of Tony. Later on, way later on in the Avengers, we see Thor, which I love. Thor crushes Iron Man's arms. He's so strong. The problem, that is, for me, is you've now defined how powerful someone is in all of those scenarios. Those are all great. We all have that. So when you break them, you're now, for me, and I don't suspend the disbelief and all that, it's fine. But now I don't know what to believe. I don't know how strong he is. I don't know how strong his guns are. I don't know how strong Piccolo is. I have nothing to go on because the system makes no sense. Right? You've broken all of it. In one scene, you've shown Thor, the god of thunder. This is later on. I'm drifting a bit. I hated this. I think it was the Thor Ragnarok. Thor gets captured by Jeff Goldblum, and Thor's the God of Thunder, and I think they just put a taser on Thor. And he gets zapped. And he goes unconscious. Right? The God of Thunder. I don't know if it was defined before that, if he lost the powers or whatever, but Thor gets electrocuted and he passes out. Jeff Goldblum, and I know it's funny, but if you're showing me this fucking like this God of Thunder get electrocuted and he passes out, well, how the fuck is he going to defeat Hela in any way, shape, or form? I know he doesn't, but how's he going to defeat anybody? How can I take this character serious? Right? So I would say the purpose of what I'm talking about is if you're going to enter a character, right? If you're going to enter a character, if you're going to give them a weapon, a sword, a gun, a piece of armor, a shield, if you don't want to go to that level, that's okay. And then you never really define how powerful someone is. But I would say it adds more to the writing if you do give your character a suit or a weapon or an ability or a spell, and you clearly define how powerful this is. Like, if I give my character a shield and it's indestructible, like that is an indestructible shield, you keep it indestructible. And if you're gonna break that shield, right? When Hela breaks Mjolnir or Thanos cuts Captain America's shield in half, like, we need to really define how powerful this enemy is, and it can work well, right? If we have this really definitive scale of power, and then we have it get completely overwhelmed. But again, I think that you've got to be very careful when you're writing your scenes. If you've shown your character to be able to, you know, like Aragorn, for example, specifically in the movie, and he's flying through the Uruk-hai, like he's wiping these guys out, and then he's really struggling with Lurtz. Like, that's awesome. Lurtz was fucking tough, and it shows how powerful he was. But you've defined how powerful Aragorn is. Now, I don't think this happens in any of the movies, but it would basically, after you've shown me that, you can't have Aragorn get absolutely bested by like some fool in a forest or unarmed easily. Like, you've clearly shown me that Aragorn is a fucking force to be reckoned with. So because of that, if you were writing that character, you can never have that character get easily defeated, knocked out, or injured. And if you do, that you can use that to your advantage. But there's just so many times, before I ramble, there's so many times where people, and I get it, these are TV shows, they're movies, they're other books, people don't care, and it's spectacle. But if you want to go that little extra bit in your own work, I think that it's worth noting that you should honor that. You should give it some semblance of realism and grounding, and go, no, this can't do that, or this character can do this, but they can't do that, right? And don't break it. Use it like a very hard magic system. I think like Full Metal Alchemist does it. Like, they have, you know, the law of equivalent exchange. It's an incredibly hard magic system. You can't draw something from nothing, and if you do, there's dire consequences. It literally cost Edward and Alphonse like an arm and a leg, right? Like, they clearly define that. And then I think later on, like, you know, you get the Philosopher's Stones and stuff, so they can break it a little bit. But at least you give yourselves, like, if you were writing that, it gives you a little bit of leeway, where they have, you know, they have the Philosopher's Stone, they can draw energy on, so it allows them to play with a little bit more. But I would say, again, whatever you're doing, whatever you're writing, especially in your fantasy and things like that, be very careful with power levels, because they can work incredibly well. But when you show your audience, your reader, your viewer, that your character can withstand something, then you turn around in another scene, and we all know logically it's nowhere near as powerful as what they've already went through. It really, for me at least, takes you out of that. Really takes you out of it, and then I feel like you kind of lost your grounding a bit, where you're not able to go, like, to kind of follow it along in a sense, where now you've just, there's no logic, nothing matters, and you can just do anything. And if that's what you're doing, okay, but then you kind of just rob your story, right? I think there's a bigger issue there. We'll come back to this, but that's my opinion on power level. I don't know if it's been discussed. I'm sure someone else, I'm sure one of the better writers have like a video on this, but this isn't necessarily like a hard magic system. but it goes into defined limits. Maybe that would have been better. If I would have written this out beforehand and not just been going to grab pizzas, that's what I would have did. Define your limits, or don't. Right? Gives you some wiggle room. But I think it's more fun to define the limits and work within that. I think that you can, and I think that if you do that, if you take anything away from this video, I think that if you define your limits and work with that, it gives you a better story, right? It gives you a much better story to work with, because you as the writer are armed with the knowledge of what this character is going in with. And maybe you can have some fun with giving them a little bit more, because what you have armed them with and told the reader or the viewer about isn't enough. Careful with your power levels, guys. Piccolo one-shot the moon. He's the strongest. Don't forget.